Hi everyone, I'm Dave Ringo, and welcome to another episode of Across the Hooniverse, where we're going to talk about the things that we learned from the Doctor Who story, The Witchfinders. That's episode 8 of series 11, starring Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor, and Alan Cumming as King James I, or King James VI, depending on how you're counting. Now, when is this story set? Well, it's in the 1600s in Lancashire. We can narrow down the date a little bit more because we're told in the story that the King James Bible has already been released, and that came out in 1611. And we also know that King James died in 1625, so it's got to be somewhere between 1611 and 1625. If you can narrow it down more than I can, please let me know in the comments section down below, because I'm interested in that kind of stuff. The Doctor and her companions are looking for they want to go to the coronation of Elizabeth I, but they kind of missed it. We know it's a Sunday when the TARDIS team lands, and the Doctor says another thing about not interfering with history. She says, do not interfere with the fundamental fabric of history, even when history has been interfered with, she says. But then she goes ahead and interferes. So that's the story of Doctor Who right there in a nutshell, isn't it? We're also told, and this is kind of unusual, but I think it's because of the budget, but we're told that horses have been banned because they're instruments of Satan. They probably just couldn't afford the horses for the episode, and everybody's walking everywhere. Yeah. There is one little niggle I have about history, because I'm a historian. Now, this is not my field of history, but... and correct me if I'm wrong here. If you know more about it than I do, please correct me. But from my understanding, the way that dunking worked, right, when you're trying to test to see if a woman's a witch, it wasn't like what we saw in the episode. Dunking chairs were not what they used for witches. Dunking chairs, well, they could use them for witches to punish people. They were punishing instruments, but not usually for witches. They actually would tie a witch and dunk her in a different way. Her big toe would be attached to her hand or something like that, and then they dip her down into the water, something to that effect. Not like they had in this particular story. But that's not the most egregious error, at least I don't think so. When they put the witch in the water, we're told that the way that it was determined whether she was guilty or not is that if she drowned, she was innocent, and if she floated, she was a witch, and then would be, executed or whatever. But that's not how it worked. All right, they weren't that bad. They didn't wait for the person to drown. If you sunk, you were innocent, and they would fish you out before you died. That's the way it would work. I don't know if they always did it in time, but that was the idea, that if you were innocent, you would not die. But in this episode, they made it seem like, oh, she drowned, like she was dead either way. But that's not how it worked. It's a small thing, I suppose, but it makes it more dramatic this way. There was a bit of a dig on the Old Testament, I noticed, in favor of the New Testament. Something to the effect like the God of the New Testament is kind and loving, but the God of the Old Testament is vengeful and angry and so forth. And that's an old myth that really needs to be dispelled. King James makes a reference to hiding behind his title, but implying that the Doctor also hides behind a title, which is true. So that's brought up before in Doctor Who, but it's kind of interesting to see it again. The Doctor once again makes a reference to meeting somebody famous, in this case Houdini. She had a wet weekend with him, she says. Again, we don't know if the Doctor is telling the truth about this, but she does escape, the dunking chair, so maybe she did actually meet Houdini. Oh, now that I think about it, the third Doctor mentions that he had met Houdini. So, yeah, probably it actually did happen. Maybe it was the same occasion they were referring to. The enemy aliens in here are the Morax. M-O-R-A-X, I believe. And they are imprisoned beneath a tree under the hill. And they've been there a long time. They were captured and put there after a war. We're told that the tree is a biomech security. And they're great aliens, I thought. But the Doctor says they've been there for probably billions of years. but I don't think that's possible because, well, first of all, the Earth is only 4.5 billion years old, so I guess that could be billions. But trees are not that old. Trees are only like 390 million years old, so that's not even 1 billion. And if there was a tree there holding them in, there must have already been trees on the planet so that it, blends in. So I think the doctor must be mistaken in that area. So those are some of the things we learned in the Witchfinders. I hope you liked it. If you want to hear next week's, please subscribe. I will be back to talk about the next episode. Until then, safe travels in time and space.